All right, for our Interview the Expert today, I'm here with my friend Heath Holt, who works with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. And Heath, would you mind to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Livingwell, for having me today. I'm one person out of a 3-member team that works at the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. And what we do is we're tasked with kind of pushing this idea of wellness, health and wellness, as an initiative throughout our system, so statewide. One of my main responsibility and obligation is to kind of implement a grant that we've received through the Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust, which focuses on physical activity, nutrition, and of course tobacco cessation, because that's primarily where the funding comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of that we do various statewide trainings in different regions of the state. We call it the Well Power Training Series, where we bring in experts in motivational interviewing and also pharmacotherapy to come and provide some information to the people that provide the actual clinical services to our clients and consumers at their different facilities. In addition to that, we bring in some curriculum that we've purchased through the University of Colorado from the Chad Morris Group that is called Well Body. It's a program specifically targeted toward people with behavioral health issues that helps to provide an intervention for physical activity and nutrition.
Okay. And when you say behavioral health, you mean folks with mental illness or with substance abuse disorders and who are being treated in state agency?
Absolutely. It's just a lot simpler to say behavioral health and mental health and addiction. There's so many words.
For our audience of students, they may not know all the terminology we might use. So that might be surprising to the students to hear that in mental health and substance use treatment centers, they're focusing on diet and activity and those sorts of issues. Can you say more about why that's important to do that? What's the motivation for that?
Absolutely. There's a huge health discrepancy, health disparity with the behavioral health population, mental health and addiction folks in terms of physical activity and nutrition, as well as tobacco cessation. Historically, we have rewarded good behavior and compliant behavior with cigarettes and tobacco. And also we have kind of had a restricted environment for those folks when we have them in inpatient settings. And the medications they take oftentimes produce or give effects of where it's very sedentary lifestyles. So it's very important that we kind of shift the paradigm in regard to what information we provide to them and how we approach treatment services.
Right. So part of the side effects of the treatments can result in unhealthy behaviors or overweight and those sorts of issues, and so trying to address those.
It's really important that we not only focus on and changing the services that we provide to be more holistic and more health oriented and include physical activity, nutrition, and tobacco cessation. It's just as important that we also help ourselves include that into the way that we not only provide the services, but the way that we think about ourselves and also become more healthy, because we're role modeling this, either whether we acknowledge that or not. We're always providing that hope, that inspiration to the people that we're providing the services. So it's just as important that we do it for them as we do for ourselves.
Okay. This is sort of a transformation, this sort of melding of the mental health and substance use with the physical health and well-being as well. And it makes all the sense in the world to me, because mental health people know about behavior change and behaviors, and you'd expect them to be open to this, but it's not the way it's always been.
Right.
So I wonder if you're experiencing any kind of pushback or resistance, or how have the agencies been receptive to this new added focus on wellness?
I think that I'm pretty lucky in that regard, because it's been very positive. They've been accepting us and opening us are pushing this wellness initiative with open arms. I don't think that it was like that maybe 5 years ago. Our predecessors, who just focused on tobacco cessation only, the environment was different, the culture was different. There was no tobacco-free policy statewide, and now that initial push has already been made and everybody's getting kind of used to that, we come in and get to include in the conversation physical activity and nutrition, as well as tobacco cessation, and people are a lot more open to talking about health and wellness with those three component parts together, as opposed to just tobacco cessation.
And I would guess not only are behavioral health consumer populations higher in things like tobacco use, the providers are as well.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
It might have been a bit of a threatening thing to come in with that kind of a message.
Yes, and it has been, and it's the same kind of idea with the whole concept of recovery. A lot of people are driven to this field because they have either lived experience with mental health or substance abuse, or they have family, friends, neighbors, somebody close to them that's kind of put this field on their radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been good.
So the position you're in now really wouldn't have existed even a few years ago, possibly. I wonder if you could tell us how a little bit about your training background and how you came to be in this position doing this kind of work today.
Sure. I started. I always had an interest in human behavior in high school, and so I thought exactly what I was going to do was to become a psychologist and go to school and get my PhD in psychology. So I got an undergrad in psychology, started out there, and immediately started working at a community mental health center, working with homeless folks, because that was the job that was offered to me, and took it. Took that job and quickly realized that two things. One, that I had a passion for advocacy, giving voice to people, initiatives, causes, concerns that oftentimes are silenced or neglected. And two, that I didn't know very much. I needed to learn more. And so I went back to school and I went to the University of Oklahoma to get a master's in human relations. And with that degree, you have the option to become a licensed professional counselor. And that would be on the trajectory or the path that I thought that was for me and my ultimate goal to be a clinical psychologist. But I quickly realized then, when I started to get into my internship part of the master's degree program, that clinical work wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. I could do it, but it wasn't 100% in my heart. I felt like you got to have 100% of that in your heart to do it full time, all the time.
Right.
But I did develop an interest in research and writing. As part of my completion of my degree, I wrote a thesis and did some community research and helped do some community organizing as part of that. And so at the end of my degree, when I finished the thesis, I got a job at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, serving as a consumer advocate, using my advocacy skills and also being able to do some administrative work that my degree had been preparing me for. And so at the same time, this whole idea of wellness was relatively new to the department, because there was a federal push from the SAMHSA administration, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration, and took opportunities as they arose, as these positions started to come up and as grants were being written and being applied for to fund people to kind of push the wellness agenda throughout the system.
Sure. So you've been involved in writing several grants. So I guess one of the skills I just want to highlight for the students watching is the writing skills you developed through your training that maybe you didn't know would be a part of your work, but they turned out to be valuable in the work you do now.
Yeah, absolutely. We just recently secured another grant that we wrote from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which is going to help us to infiltrate the Oxford houses with different tobacco cessation resources from the Oklahoma Tobacco Helpline. And so there's all kinds of opportunities to secure additional funding, and to be able to do that, you have to be able to write. Sure. And that funds lots of people's positions and treatment services all the time. Yeah.
And for our students who may not know, what is an Oxford House?
An Oxford House is a self-run, self-managed residential type setting for people who have either alcoholism or a drug addiction. There's no staff necessarily that oversee the Oxford House. It's all self-run from the people who are actually in recovery. They pay the bills, they pay the electricity, they pay the rent all by themselves.
So it's self-help, kind of transitional housing.
They keep each other accountable.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I wonder if you'd have any last advice for our students who may be interested in the types of things you're talking about, the kinds of programs you're talking about, the kinds of populations. What advice would you have for college students interested in those kinds of careers?
I would say that in any type of formal setting, preparing people for the real world, take opportunities as they come, even if it's not something that you thought that you would do or something that you would be interested in originally. It doesn't fit into the the trajectory that you have outlined for yourself. Take opportunities because they will lead you somewhere where your interests are anyways, or you'll develop interests that you might not know that you had, and it all works out.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today, Heath. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.